Hello, everyone. I got a message saying my wife, Olivia, had booked us a table at a restaurant for Valentine's Day. That caught me off guard because every year I was the one who handled those plans. But when the evening rolled around, all I got from her was a short text saying she had to stay late at work. Later that night, I was scrolling through WhatsApp when I saw a post from one of her colleagues, Ryan. It read, "Only a caring sister knows how to spoil someone. A fancy dinner, great company. Tonight's dessert was sweet, but not as sweet as your lips." The picture attached showed him and Olivia. Close, too close. She was wearing the necklace I had given her that morning. Right there on the table sat the bottle of wine I had picked out just for her. But what really hit me? The restaurant. It was the same place where we had celebrated our most cherished moments. The same place where I had gotten down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. A younger me would have confronted her immediately, but this time, I just felt exhausted. When Olivia came home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating a mango. She's allergic, so for years, we never had mangoes in the house. She looked surprised to see me still awake and handed me a gift, a Patek Philippe watch. "Happy Valentine's Day, honey," she said, smiling. Maybe she wasn't just someone who took. Maybe she still had it in her to give. Earlier that day, I had received a message from the restaurant owner, an old friend from our college days. He was still single, and as always, he cracked a joke about it before congratulating me on another Valentine's celebration. Then he mentioned a new cake they had on the menu and asked if I wanted to try it. "Does it have mango?" I asked. "No," he assured me. So I said yes. Not long after, Olivia called to tell me she had to work late. That night, restless and unable to sleep, I picked up my phone and saw Ryan's post again. Olivia was right there beside him, in that same restaurant, sipping the wine I had chosen for her, the necklace I had fastened around her neck gleaming under the warm lights. The cake on the table had layers of mango puree, something she couldn't eat. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. I didn't bring up the post, didn't ask her for an explanation. Instead, I had a craving, so I ordered mango, and I ate it, something I hadn't done in years, just because of her. After finishing, I pushed my chair back and said, "I'm heading to bed if there's nothing else." She grabbed my arm. "Nathan, it's Valentine's Day." I looked at her and shrugged. "So?" She frowned and stepped closer. With a teasing smirk, she whispered in my ear, "On a night like this, you're really going to bed so early?" For as long as I had known Olivia, she had carried an air of cold, distant elegance. After college, her glasses only amplified her sharp, intellectual charm, making her seem even more untouchable. But that night, there was a faint scent of smoke on her. I took a step back. "I just ate mango. You'll have an allergic reaction." I walked into the bedroom, locked the door behind me, and lay down. My phone buzzed. It was my supervisor. "So, are you actually taking the position this time?" she asked. "Because if you flake on me again over Olivia, I swear, Nathan, I'll kill you." I chuckled. "I won't back out again. If I do, I'll personally hand you my resignation with my head on a platter." The job in advertising came with a significant raise, but required constant travel. 3 years ago, I turned it down for Olivia. She was always the kind of woman who valued stability, and I knew she wouldn't handle me being away all the time. It had taken me 6 months to gather the courage to hold her hand for the first time. Back in middle and high school, my friends never understood why I was drawn to her. They called her boring, distant. I just smiled and said, "Because she saved my life." It happened in middle school when an earthquake hit. The whole school erupted in chaos as everyone ran for the exits. I was at the front of the crowd when I tripped over a desk leg. As the panic surged forward, Olivia pushed her way through the rushing bodies, found me, and pulled me up. She stayed in front, keeping close as we made it out together. Later, I asked her, "What were you thinking? If you didn't make it out, All your hard work, all your dreams, wouldn't they have been wasted? She hesitated before answering. I wasn't thinking that much, she said quietly. I just knew that if I couldn't make it out, I'd rather not make it out alone. That was the Olivia I fell in love with. Someone who always put others before herself. But now, I wondered if she ever imagined a day where she'd leave me behind for someone else. I never doubted her sincerity, but sincerity has an expiration date. My supervisor must have sensed something in my voice. Nathan, everyone screws up. It's easy to blame the past, but it's harder to fix the present. I just hope you have the guts to make the right choices when it matters. Then, with her usual sarcasm, she added, "Of course, someone like me never makes mistakes. But you're far from perfect. So, whatever happens, just don't lose the job. You start in 3 days. First stop, Argentina. And I expect you to be all in." The next morning, I woke up early, ready to wrap up my final tasks before the transition. Olivia was sitting in the living room, her lips slightly swollen, likely from the mango allergy after whatever had happened with Ryan last night. I walked past her, heading for the door, but she grabbed my wrist. "Why are you mad?" she asked. "Because I didn't spend time with you yesterday. I told you I had to work late. The company's about to go public. Do you know how hard I've worked to climb up to management as a woman? So many people are watching me. I have to set an example. You always said you supported my career. So why are you acting like this now?" I had tolerated her cold, distant nature for years. Even when I was in the hospital, she had been too busy to notice. Even now, while she was saying all this, her phone buzzed. Without hesitation, she answered it, her voice instantly softening into something almost sweet. I didn't have to hear the words to know who was on the other end. And that was the first time I ever heard Olivia mention Ryan. That was when it hit me. She wasn't too busy for a phone call. She just didn't think I was worth sharing that side of her life with. I pulled away from her grasp and said, "Enough. Olivia, we're done." Before I could finish, her phone rang again. She glanced at the screen, gave me an apologetic look, and answered. It was Ryan. "Sis, come pick me up. It's freezing, and I don't want to get out of bed. If you don't, I'll be late and won't get paid." Olivia's face softened immediately as she responded. "You're afraid of the cold? The same guy who climbs snowy mountains at night? All right, Ryan, but you're bringing me breakfast, right?" I let out a bitter laugh. Ryan must have sensed something was off because he added, "Oh, by the way, tell Nathan thanks. Not only did I eat at his restaurant yesterday, but I also borrowed one of his people. I'll make sure to send him a great gift in the future." At Ryan's words, Olivia's expression shifted. She shot me a guilty look before quickly turning away, instinctively lowering her voice as she spoke into the phone. The absurdity of it all made me laugh. I shook my head and turned to leave, but Olivia wasn't done. She ended the call abruptly and rushed after me. Ryan had a client dinner but forgot to book a restaurant, so I gave him our reservation. It was just business. You understand, right? She probably didn't realize how ridiculous that sounded. Later that night, when I was feeling unwell, I asked her to make me some porridge. Instead, she threw on her coat and said, "Ryan has no food at home. I'm going to cook for him." I froze. I didn't know whether to ask about her relationship with Ryan or why she was prioritizing another man over me, but she didn't give me a chance. She left in a hurry, not even noticing I was curled up on the couch, sick. It was a stark contrast to how things had been in high school. Back then, if I looked even slightly stressed or skipped a meal, Olivia would scold me with her usual cold demeanor. But during an emergency break, she'd always pull out a steaming bowl of rice cakes and say, "Eat. You'll only feel worse if I don't take care of you." When I got to the office the next morning, my supervisor dumped a mountain of paperwork on my desk. "Handle all this in 3 days, or come to me with your head." I worked late into the night, and when I checked my phone, I saw a draft of the divorce papers from my lawyer. In the middle of a snowstorm, I took a cab straight to Olivia's office building. But as I reached her floor, the power went out. Frowning, I turned on my phone's flashlight. Just then, a message popped up from a colleague with a link. His tone was hesitant. "Isn't this the heavy metal concert you've always wanted to go to?" Confused, I clicked it. It led me to a post on Ryan's account, chronicling his moments with Olivia. He had known her since high school, followed her to college, and now worked at her company. His bio read, "Being head over heels for her isn't just your privilege." I clicked on the video and immediately understood why my colleague had hesitated to send it. Flashing concert lights illuminated Ryan and Olivia's faces. They were holding hands, kissing passionately in the crowd. My phone slipped from my grasp and crashed to the floor. A sharp rage burned in my chest. Olivia and I had been together for most of our lives. And yet, despite everything, I realized I had never really known her. From her office, I heard muffled sobs. Olivia choked out, "I'm sorry, but we really can't." A male voice responded, I just like you. What did I do wrong?" Ryan wrapped his arms around her waist, gently stroking her tear-streaked face before kissing her cheek. His eyes were filled with sadness. I watched as his hand slid from her waist to the back of her head. In the darkness, they shared a long, lingering kiss. Bang! The power flickered back on, flooding the room with light. They finally noticed me standing in the doorway. Ryan quickly spoke up. "Nathan, it's not what it looks like. I'm just too in love with her. It's not Olivia's fault." Olivia looked stunned when she saw me. Her lips were slightly parted, still glistening. "Nathan, why are you here?" she whispered. I stared at her for a long moment before turning to Ryan with a smirk. And in the next second, I slammed my fist into his face. Before he could even fall, I grabbed his collar, yanked him up, and glared at him viciously. "That was for your pathetic excuse of a face. I've met plenty of pretentious women, but never a man who acted like one. Makes me sick." He tried to speak, but I didn't give him the chance. I drove a right hook into his stomach, knocking the air from his lungs. He doubled over in pain, collapsing to the floor. Olivia snapped out of her shock and stepped forward to intervene. Just as I backhanded her across the face, she gasped, clutching her cheek, tears filling her eyes. I calmly slipped off my wedding ring and tossed it at her feet like garbage. When it hit her, she finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Nathan, don't do this. Please, just listen to me." I ignored her, reaching into my coat and pulling out the printed divorce papers. "Olivia, we're done." She disregarded all dignity, chasing me down the stairs. "Nathan, please just listen. It's not what you think." Half the building watched in stunned silence as I flagged down a cab. Amid the swirling snow, Olivia pressed herself against the car door, stopping me from shutting it. Her expression was desperate as she pleaded, "There's nothing between us. He's just a kid. He doesn't know any better." I sneered. "He's not grown up yet. So you're just teaching him how to kiss in advance, huh?" My tone was flat. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a silent plea, as if she were staring at a ship that was never coming back. She choked out, "Don't look at me like that, Nathan. Please don't look at me like that. We've been together for over 10 years. I can't live without you. Ryan was just an accident." Her voice grew quieter and quieter, but then someone called out from behind her, "Olivia, Ryan's gone up to the rooftop. Come quick." She instinctively let go and turned around. I let out a derisive laugh and slammed the car door shut without hesitation. In the rear-view mirror, I saw Olivia take a few hesitant steps toward me before stopping. Then, she turned and rushed back into the building. I closed my eyes. As my anger subsided, a stabbing pain settled deep in my chest. The driver glanced at me through the rear-view mirror, his voice filled with concern. "Hey, kid, you all right?" I wiped my face, turned my head away, and stayed silent. Back home, I started packing up my belongings. Not long after, Both Olivia's parents and mine called. I thought bitterly, Olivia sure is busy. She has to calm Ryan down from jumping off a building, but she still has time to get our parents involved to play peacemakers. Olivia and I had been together for over 10 years. Our bond was tangled, difficult to sever, like an old rope frayed by time, but still holding on. In the end, my parents simply said, "Son, we just want you to make decisions that lead to your happiness." Once I finished packing, I opened the door, only to find Olivia standing there, her face devastated. She looked like a child caught in the middle of a mistake, trembling as she reached for my hand. "Nathan, please don't leave. Let me explain everything." I stared at her silently, and then she broke down. "I'm begging you. Hit me. Scold me. Do whatever you want. Just don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that." She pressed down on my suitcase, desperately trying to stop me from leaving. "Nathan, we promised we'd grow old together. Our parents are expecting us back in Beijing for the new year. You can't leave me now. Mom and Dad miss you so much." I sighed deeply, looking at her. "What do you want, Olivia?" She nearly collapsed to her knees, hugging my leg, her tears soaking through my pants. She sobbed uncontrollably, pleading, "Please give me another chance. I promise I'll do better." I didn't answer her immediately. Instead, my gaze drifted to an old college graduation photo that had slipped out while I was packing. When I looked closer, I realized something. In the photo, it wasn't just Olivia and me. Ryan was there too, standing in the background beneath a tree, his gaze fixed on Olivia. And Olivia's eyes? They weren't on me. They were on him. So, it had started that early, hadn't it? I thought those moments had belonged to just the two of us. But all along, there had been someone else in the picture. Olivia trembled, avoiding my gaze, like a criminal awaiting punishment. To her surprise, I spoke softly. "All right." She looked up, her eyes bright with disbelief and hope. "Really? Nathan, are you willing to start over with me?" After a pause, I nodded and unexpectedly added, "Sure, but on one condition." I paused, my voice steady. "Remember how we planned a trip to the islands back in high school? All these years, we never went. I want us to take a 5-day vacation to the islands." Olivia immediately agreed, throwing herself into my arms and murmuring, "It's that simple?" I nodded, though deep down, I knew she wouldn't be able to follow through. As I reflected, Olivia's attraction to Ryan wasn't as surprising as I had first thought. Her life had always been carefully structured, dictated by her family's expectations. From Beijing to the capital, from her education to her career, even having me as her childhood sweetheart. Her future had always been mapped out for her, calm and predictable. But when life feels too safe for too long, it's only natural to crave excitement. Ryan was that thrill. He was rebellious, spontaneous. He took her on late-night hikes up snow-covered mountains, kept her up all night at concerts, kissed her at sunrise by the sea. No matter how reserved someone is, it's hard not to get swept up in that kind of passion. Olivia told me that after our vacation, she would be by my side every day, making sure I never grew tired of her. It was as if she feared I might change my mind. She took charge of planning every detail of the trip to the islands, seemingly excited to finally go on the trip we had planned so long ago. Meanwhile, I scrolled through social media, indifferent. Ryan kept posting constantly, as if tormenting himself with his own feelings for Olivia. I watched coldly. Today, he finally broke. He posted something blunt. "The person she loves is me." I couldn't help but laugh, replying with a post of my own. "From now on, I'll be living on the islands with my wife. The past is behind us, gone like smoke. Today is a new beginning. I just want to hold her hand from now on." Ryan, unable to contain himself, requested a meeting. We met at a cafe, and he asked through clenched teeth, "After everything, you're still going to forgive her? You're really going to stay with her?" I smiled, saying nothing in response. He spat out, You're really leaving? Really moving to the islands? Why hasn't she said anything to me? He added in frustration. I dropped the visa my supervisor had expedited for me onto the table. Half joking, I said, Olivia and I have been together for over 10 years. She begged me for another chance, and I told her she could drop everything and leave with me. I'd forgive her. Of course, she agreed. I smiled, but there was no warmth in my eyes. Ryan, now furious, said that's impossible. I've done so much for her. She told me she loves me. His anger was palpable, but I could hear the underlying pain in his voice. I stared at him coldly. Ryan had taken Olivia from me on Valentine's Day, messaged me to reveal their relationship, and let me catch them kissing, all in an effort to make me give up on her. What he didn't understand was that my place in Olivia's heart ran deeper than he realized. His plans had backfired. Enraged, Ryan lunged at me. But what could a small guy like him do? I easily blocked him, poured my coffee over his head, and before he could react, slapped him hard enough to send him crashing to the ground. I crouched down and grabbed his hair, forcing him to meet my gaze. Smiling, I taunted him pathetic. You really think Olivia loves you, don't you? Too bad for you. You didn't truly believe she loves you, did you? His face, filled with frustration and resentment, made me fight the urge to laugh. I repeated one last time that if Olivia chose to leave with me, I would forgive her and we'd start fresh. But if she didn't, I would never forgive her. His expression shifted, and I could see that he understood. At the airport, Olivia anxiously checked her phone, her lips pressed tight. Nathan, this time is different. Ryan's been in a car accident. It's really serious. Can we postpone the trip? I silently stared at her, my gaze tracing the contours of her face. Then I spoke. I know why you didn't come to that concert with me. Olivia froze, her lips twitching, trying to smile but failing. That night, it was Ryan's birthday. He invited me. I couldn't turn him down. I laughed bitterly. That was my favorite band, Olivia. I've told you that since I was a teenager, and on my birthday, you kept asking what my wish was. I told you I wanted enough money to see them live. You got mad, asking why my wish didn't include taking you with me. I paused, continuing. My birthday wish at 18 was to see that concert with you. Don't you remember? But I went there alone. I didn't know my wife was in the crowd, kissing someone else. I even sent her a message during the concert to remind her to eat, but she never replied. Olivia began to panic, her voice rising as if to make excuses. There will be other chances. I cut her off, my voice steady. There won't be. That was their farewell concert. There won't be another one. I looked her in the eye and repeated, there won't be another one. We stood in silence for a moment, and then without warning, I relaxed, waving her off. Go ahead. He's been in an accident and you're his supervisor. It'd look bad if you didn't go. As for the islands, I smiled, meeting her gaze. We'll just go next time. Olivia, looking as if she had been given a reprieve, rushed out of the airport through the snow and rain, hurrying to Ryan's side. I tore up the plane ticket in my hand and tossed the pieces in the trash. Then I printed a new ticket. Destination, Argentina. When Olivia woke up, she found herself lying in a man's arms. The man was gently kissing her face. Something didn't feel right. She opened her eyes wide. This wasn't Nathan. Yesterday, she had rushed to the hospital only to find out Ryan's car accident was a lie. She had been angry at first, but Ryan, tearfully said Olivia, I've loved you for so many years. One last time. Can't you stay with me just one more time? A voice inside her urged her to leave. Nathan must be furious by now. They had known each other since childhood, grown up together, been married for 7 years. Everything had seemed perfect. She couldn't leave Nathan, but Ryan's red-rimmed eyes, his gentle touch as he stroked her cheek. How could she turn him away? Olivia suddenly felt a sinking feeling, like a premonition. When you're about to lose something important, You can feel it, an instinctive dread, like falling from a tall building in a dream. Without reason, she thought of Nathan's expression when he waved goodbye to her at the airport yesterday. It had been nostalgic, yet resolute. It was like he was saying goodbye. She nearly jumped out of bed to grab her phone. But Ryan, confused, asked Olivia, "What's wrong?" Her phone was dead. Her heart raced as she watched the black screen, willing it to charge faster. The expression on her face startled Ryan. Finally, the phone powered on and a call came in. It was Olivia's mother, yelling at her. It took Olivia a moment to comprehend what was happening. Nathan had gathered evidence of her affair with Ryan and created a PowerPoint presentation, complete with attachments, and sent it to all their family, friends, and colleagues. The final slide had Nathan's typical touch, a photoshopped image of Olivia and Ryan's wedding with a handwritten note that read, "Let's wish this pair of cheaters a lifetime of childless, everlasting happiness." After hanging up, she opened her messages. Olivia drove recklessly, running red lights, her mind consumed by thoughts of Nathan. The winter weather made the roads treacherous, and she skidded several times, narrowly avoiding accidents. Despite the dangers, she couldn't focus on anything but reaching home and finding Nathan. He had always been so forgiving, so kind-hearted. She hoped, even now, there was a chance to fix everything. The urgency of the situation weighed on her, but when she finally arrived home, she found the house empty. Nathan had packed up nearly everything and left. She recalled the teasing remarks she made when they were preparing for their island trip, joking that they wouldn't be gone forever. Nathan had simply smiled and said nothing. A painful realization settled in her heart. He had been planning to leave for some time. She refused to accept it. They had spent most of their lives together. She couldn't live without him, and she was sure he felt the same. If she just apologized sincerely, made things right, he would forgive her like he always had before. But when she went to his office, his supervisor coldly had her thrown out by security. Even when she managed to contact one of Nathan's colleagues, she was met with disdain. Days passed as she searched for him, only to find out that Nathan had taken a new job and was now traveling nonstop, with no set return date. His absence seemed intentional, a slow separation she hadn't seen coming. As she looked through their old messages, she saw how distant they had become, with playful emojis replaced by unanswered texts. His social media posts were now devoid of any reference to their life together. Just a quote that read, "When did you decide to break up? When you realized your future would feel like suffocation every single day. After finishing my business, I decided to take some time to explore Argentina." The country, 22,000 kilometers away from home, was basking in the middle of summer, with the sun casting a golden glow over everything. In Buenos Aires, tango dancers twirled in the streets, and the air was a mix of European charm and Latin passion. A business partner had invited me to Mendoza, where vineyards sprawled under the summer sun, stretching like a green sea of vines. As I sipped on Malbec wine, Olivia's call came through. Her voice was hoarse as she asked Nathan, "Where are you?" I paused, taking a sip of wine before replying, "On the other side of the world." "What do you want?" "If you've signed the divorce papers, send them to my office. If not, don't bother calling." She went silent, and just as I was about to hang up, she suddenly said, "I'm sorry." Her sobs reached me, filled with helplessness and pain, like a child lost in a crowded store. "Nathan, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Tell me what to do, and I'll do anything. 20 years. We've been together for over 20 years. Can you really just let it go? How can you be so heartless?" I smiled to myself, and she must have heard it, because her sobbing stopped. In a panic, she asked, "Nathan, why are you laughing?" I exhaled, looking down, and said, "You're always like this. Always so sure that I love you, so sure that if you show me your pain, I'll feel sorry for you. But Olivia, have you ever thought that maybe I don't love you anymore?" The next time I returned to my hometown, it was New Year's Eve. The problem with childhood sweethearts is that they know each other too well. As my family gathered for the reunion dinner, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Olivia standing there, looking disheveled, thinner than before, her hair unkempt, and her face hollowed by distress. She looked defeated and helpless. The PowerPoint I had created had ruined both her and Ryan's reputations within their social circles. It seemed like justice. Olivia had spiraled downward, and those who once supported her began to withdraw, disillusioned by the truth. I overheard some of the gossip at dinner. As for me, I hadn't spoken to her since our last phone conversation. The streets were alive with the warm glow of homes, and fireworks lit up the sky in the distance. Olivia looked at me, her face a picture of despair, yet a glimmer of hope still lingered in her eyes. She struggled to speak, her words faltering. Every year, we've always spent New Year's Eve together. Nathan, I love you. I really can't live without you. I stared at her, and suddenly, memories of the younger her came rushing back. The time she snuck out on New Year's Eve, her cheeks flushed, just to give me a red string bracelet she had woven herself. I thought seeing her again would be painful, but instead, I felt nothing. The past months, traveling across the world, seeing new places, had filled me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The sound of fireworks rang in the air, signaling the end of the year, and the long, cold winter was finally over. A new year was beginning. I looked at Olivia and said, "Olivia, don't do this. It's New Year's. Seeing you like this, it makes me sick." Her face turned ashen, and without another word, I shut the door. When my parents asked who it was, I just shook my head. No one. Then, I returned to the warmth of the family dinner, fighting for the last piece of beef in the hot pot, surrounded by laughter and festive cheer. It was perfect. I still had my family. Under the supposed brilliance of my supervisor's leadership, my career soared. I quickly adapted to the life of constant travel, sending postcards from each new place I visited. My mom, having picked up some internet slang, now called me her travel frock. This time, I was in Japan, walking toward a fireworks festival while munching on some mango bread. My mom, ever worried, called me and said, "Son, be careful. I've heard Japan has a lot of earthquakes." I smiled and reassured her. Earthquakes aren't that common, but just as luck would have it, Japan's meteorological agency issued an unprecedented earthquake warning for the Nankai Trough. Flights back home were fully booked, and I was unreachable for a while. My mom, frantic, started praying and even lighting incense at midnight for my safety. Meanwhile, Olivia, upon hearing the news, bought a flight to Japan. At the time, Ryan was still with her, though he'd lost his job and was blacklisted. They were stuck in a toxic relationship, unable to break free. Ryan begged her, "Don't be stupid. Even if you go, Nathan won't forgive you. Don't you get it?" But Olivia didn't listen. In their struggle, she grabbed a kettle and smashed it over Ryan's head. Blood poured from his forehead as he screamed, "He doesn't love you. Don't you get it? I'm the only one who loves you." Olivia, without a word, walked away, leaving him behind. I finally made it back to my country, despite a delayed flight. Just before takeoff, my broken phone received a call from an unknown number, but the attendants urged me to turn it off. I did, and the call slipped from my mind. Once home, I reassured my family and quickly got back to work. That is, until Ryan appeared outside my office building. He was no longer the confident man he once was, red-eyed and disheveled. "Where's Olivia? Give me back my Olivia," he demanded. I frowned, looking at him through the glass door, wondering how he'd become such a mess. Olivia had arrived in Japan before the earthquake, and now it all clicked. I remembered the strange call from earlier, but I kept my calm and had security remove Ryan. I told him I don't care. She's your girlfriend now, not mine. The bad news came from Olivia's parents, who eventually informed my family. Olivia had traced me to the inn where I was staying, but when she tried to reach me, all she got was a busy signal. She believed I was ignoring her on purpose. So she tracked me down, and that's when the building collapsed. My mother, heavy with sorrow, told me the news. Olivia hadn't survived the collapse. She had been crushed, her legs shattered. Whether she would ever walk again was uncertain. My mom cautiously asked, "Son, are you going to visit her?" I shook my head, replying, "No. Olivia and we have nothing to do with each other anymore." After hanging up, I looked out the window of another new country. What beauty awaited me here! I couldn't wait to see it. As for the past, the events of yesterday die with yesterday. The events of today are born anew. I hope everyone could find the courage to flip the table and start fresh.